On Mother's Day. My daughter looked around my modest living room and asked sweetly, "Mom, are you happy with the $5,000 my husband sends you every month?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. After raising her with my bare hands, that question felt colder than any winter I'd survived. I smiled and poured her tea and said softly, "Dear, the church is what's keeping me alive these days." But that was the day I began writing everything down. The dates, the amounts, the truth. They thought the story ended there, but it had only just begun. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The wind chimes outside my porch whispered in the Texas breeze as I adjusted the lace runner across the small dining table. The sunlight fell soft through the crepe myrtle trees, painting moving shadows on the floor. I heard the car door shut and the click of Arliss's heels against the concrete path. My heart lifted, then steadied. It was Mother's Day. She remembered. I promised myself, as I had for years, to listen before speaking. She entered with a bouquet of lilies, her perfume expensive, faintly citrus. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," she said, her smile brief, almost practiced. I thanked her, noticing her eyes sweep across the living room like an appraiser. She sat carefully, legs crossed, as I poured tea into the old china cups from her grandmother. The quiet between us stretched. "It's so tidy here," she added. I smiled. "It keeps me company." Then came her question, like a sudden crack through calm air. "Mom, are you happy with the $5,000 Joanne sends every month?" My hand froze midair, the teaspoon clinking softly against porcelain. The air thinned, heavy and still. I looked at her, my daughter, successful, elegant, detached, and replied evenly, "The church keeps me afloat these days." My voice didn't tremble. Her smile faltered. The front door opened. Joanne entered with the confidence of a man stepping onto a stage. "Mrs. Ellison," he greeted, his tone polished, almost theatrical. "This pie smells divine." He kissed Arliss on the cheek and sat beside her, straight-backed. They looked like a magazine couple, coordinated, immaculate, rehearsed. He spoke about donors, foundations, optics. I noticed how Arliss nodded at his words more than his eyes. Then he slid his phone across the table. Screen lit. "Just to reassure you, here's proof of the transfers." A cropped screenshot, transaction lines cut short, recipient name hidden. I leaned forward, adjusted my glasses. "And the date of this one?" I asked lightly. "Oh," he said, smiling too quickly. "Perhaps you're mixing them up again." His tone was silk wrapped around dismissal. I smiled back. Perhaps. As he talked, I counted seconds between his phrases. 7, 9, 11. My old wall clock ticked behind him, steady as a metronome. I noted everything. His clipped screenshot, his need for control, my daughter's silence. I gathered the cups, turned to the sink, letting the sound of running water shield my thoughts. My ledger mind began its quiet work. We spoke of nothing for a while. Her new gallery sponsor, his travel schedule. Arliss complimented the curtains. "So minimal," she said, her eyes landing briefly on the church bulletin pinned by the fridge. Joanne laughed softly. "Family support. That's what matters." His glance lingered on the pantry corner, where I kept my brown notebook. When the clock struck 6, I asked gently, "If there's an envelope today, let's make a small receipt for my records." Joanne's smile tightened. Arliss's hand twitched. "Of course, Mom," she said quietly. He stood, smoothing his jacket, and placed a folded paper on the table, unsigned. I boxed a slice of pie for them, wrapped it in foil. At the door, I thanked them for visiting, for the flowers, for their time. The evening air cooled as they stepped onto the porch. The taillights of their car glowed red, then disappeared down the street. Inside, I closed the door, exhaled, and reached for my notebook. I wrote one sentence beneath the date, Mother's Day. Claim, 5,000 month. Evidence shown, cropped screenshot. Next step, bank, verify recipient. I placed the pen down slowly, felt my heartbeat settle into rhythm with the ticking clock. The house was quiet again. Not empty, just mine. I closed the door, opened my brown notebook, and wrote one sentence that would hold me together. Verify the recipient, then decide the next move. I locked the door behind me, tucking my brown notebook into my purse beside a pen and a folded grocery list. Monday, sunlight fell flat on the street, the kind that bleaches everything equal: houses, cars, truth. I drove to the Credit Union of Texas with my treasurer's brain switched on. No room for feelings today. Facts were what I came for. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of sanitizer and paper. Numbers calmed me. They didn't lie. They didn't shift tone mid-sentence. I watched the red digital Q blink, A07, A08, and wrote in my notebook, verify transfer dates, recipient name, recurring ID, sub-accounts, if any. I kept my voice rehearsed in my head, neutral and kind. That was always the trick. Ask clearly, never plead. When my turn came, the teller, her name tag read Zara Nguyen, greeted me with a polite smile. I slid my ID and account card across the counter. Could I see all deposits over the past 8 months? I asked. Specifically, any recurring ones for $5,000. Zara's fingers moved over the keyboard. Her calm made me trust her. After a moment, she frowned gently. There are no such deposits, Mrs. Ellison, only monthly interest accruals. She turned the screen toward me. The rows were blank. Heat rose behind my neck, not shame, but clarity sharpening. Would you print those, please, and stamp them? She nodded, printing the statement, her nails clicking against the counter. Would you also note, no transfers received for the last 8 months? She did, careful handwriting at the bottom. I thanked her, sliding the copies into my folder. Proof didn't need to shout. Before leaving, I asked, could you explain what a recipient alias looks like in a transfer? Zara looked up. It's usually the registered name or a nickname tied to the receiving account. It's visible unless someone crops it out. My pen scratched quickly. Verify recipient field, not just screenshot. She smiled faintly. You work with numbers? Used to, I replied. Numbers keep me honest. From there, I drove to St. Mark's Pantry, where the air smelled of cardboard and cinnamon bread. Morning, Asha, I said as I reached the counter. She smiled, sleeves rolled to her elbows, name tag crooked. You need today's receipt? Last week's, actually, I said. The one for my produce pickup. She printed it, signed her initials, dated it. I folded it carefully into the same folder as the bank papers. Facts help me sleep, I said softly. She nodded. They help us all. Miss Mora? On the drive home, I kept the radio off. The silence helped me think. I rehearsed how to ask for the uncropped image without sounding accusatory. A direct challenge would only feed their theater. Strategy, I reminded myself, is another kind of prayer, one that asks for patience instead of miracles. My phone rang halfway home. Arliss. Mom, she began too brightly, Duran just realized he might have left an envelope for you in the car yesterday. Check the glove compartment, would you? Her tone was sugar with a crack in it. I thanked her calmly, writing the note as she spoke. Claim, envelope, location, glove box. Let me know, okay? Of course, dear, I said, already knowing. At home. The car sat still and warm in the driveway. I opened the glove box, registration papers, old napkins, a spare pen, no envelope, just a boutique thank you card from a floral shop, unsigned except for embossed gold letters, with love on Mother's Day. I photographed the empty compartment. Proof, not pity. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the one with the soft burn mark from my old teapot. I spread out the day's evidence, the stamped bank statement, the pantry receipt, the phone log. I clipped them neatly and titled the top page, Transfer Verification File. Underneath, I wrote my next steps, request full screenshot with recipient, transfer date, last 4 digits visible. When the clock chimed 7, I added one final note to steady my hand. If money is love, it should arrive with a name. I texted Arliss, short and polite. Please bring the uncropped proof next visit. Then I set the binder by the door, where morning light would find it first. I slid the binder to the edge of the table and whispered to the clock, tomorrow I ask for the uncropped truth. When the phone rang that Tuesday afternoon, I already knew it wouldn't be about love. Arliss's voice came bright, like she'd practiced cheer in front of a mirror. Mom, come for dinner tonight. We'll clear up this whole money thing. I looked at the clock, 4:12 p.m., and wrote in my notebook, Tuesday, reconciliation or record keeping. Then I said yes, because showing up was another form of evidence. Their house in Plano gleamed like a catalog spread, new stone walkway, manicured shrubs, lights timed to perfection. Joran greeted me with a grin that showed every tooth. New landscape design, he said, waving at the lawn. Cost us a fortune, but worth it. I noticed an HOA badge hanging near the door and, behind his clipboard, a letterhead peeking out, unpaid fee reminder. He didn't see me notice. I smiled, complimented the roses, and followed the scent of lemon polish inside. Dinner began with small talk that sliced where it shouldn't. Arliss told stories about her husband's discipline with money. He always pays bills on time, she said, eyes flicking to him like punctuation. We're lucky to have his focus. I nodded, stirring my tea. In my mind, the image of my own red final notice, property tax, corner of my mailbox last week, flashed like a quiet warning. Yes, I said softly. Organization is everything. Dessert came with performance. Joran leaned back, fork balanced like a baton. We set up the transfers automatically, he said. Every 15th, right on schedule. Arliss added without missing a beat. Actually, it's always the 10th. My spoon paused midair. They didn't hear themselves. 2 dates. 1 story. I smiled and looked down, pretending to admire the pie. That's wonderful, I said. Consistency matters. Inside, I counted, 10, 15. Both lies can't live together. After dinner, I followed Arliss to the kitchen, rinsing plates beside her. The air smelled of vanilla soap and quiet strain. Do you ever check the receipts? I asked casually. For your own peace of mind? She hesitated, turned the faucet off halfway. He handles everything, she said. Always has. Her voice was small, her eyes somewhere near the office door, where I heard the faint buzz of Joran's printer. While she reached for foil, I opened a drawer for plastic wrap and saw it, an envelope marked to Mr. and Mrs. Derhauers. Vale. Delinquent HOA fees. The red ink was sharp, fresh. I closed the drawer gently before she turned. My chest tightened, not from anger, but from pity too sharp to show. He lectures about fiscal virtue while debt hums under his roof. I simply nodded as she thanked me for helping. You raised me to stay organized, she said, forcing a smile. I did, I replied, and I still mean it. Back at the table, Duran launched into a speech about financial integrity and generational responsibility. I listened, sipping water, feeling each word like grit. When he paused for praise, I said, "Clarity is kindness." The sentence landed flat. Arliss jumped in with a nervous laugh, offering more pie. He declined. Silence filled the room like steam. When I rose to leave, Arliss hugged me quickly, her arms light as tissue. Duran walked me to the door, insisting, "We're always transparent. Maura." I nodded, stepping into the hallway. In the mirror by the entryway, I caught the reflection of the red envelope tucked beneath his clipboard. I lifted my phone discreetly, the camera's faint click masked by the hum of the dishwasher. The smell of cinnamon followed me out, sweet and sour at once, at home. The night air felt honest. I spread my notes across the kitchen table, the binder open to a new page. 2 dates, 1 lie. The pattern was visible now, thin but unbroken. I wrote slowly. Contradiction confirmed. Next, source verification. Then I underlined it twice. I realized I didn't need louder arguments, just better paperwork. That morning, the air over Richardson carried the faint sweetness of cut grass. I stood on Mrs. Torres's porch and rang the bell. She appeared in her floral robe, juggling keys and a tote bag. "Oh, Maura, I'm running late for my shift," she said breathlessly. "But my son can export those ring clips tomorrow. I told him about your request." I smiled. "Tomorrow's fine, dear. Thank you for helping." She patted my arm, already halfway down the steps. Hope, measured carefully, was better than none. At home. I opened my notebook beside my coffee and drew a small table with 4 boxes. Transfer ID, recipient name, linked subaccounts, power of attorney, POA status. I wrote today's date, underlined verify recipient legal field. Each box, once checked, would mean less room for excuses. By mid-morning, I was at the Credit Union of Texas, the same lobby where I'd been on Monday, but this time at the senior desk. The woman there, her badge read Linda Patel, had kind eyes and a professional calm. She looked through my binder of printed statements. "I'm not disputing people," I said. "I'm confirming fields. That's exactly how we like it," she replied, printing a permission form. "Sign here to allow me to look into routing metadata." I did. Her voice was efficient, the kind that never wasted a word. The printer hummed while she clicked through screens. After a moment, her tone changed. She turned the monitor slightly my way. On the screen, under recipient alias, was my full name, Maura Ellison, but the last 4 digits of the linked account weren't mine. "This looks like a sub-account," Patel said carefully. "Sometimes third parties set up recurring routes that mirror the name field but connect elsewhere." My throat stayed steady. "So it looks like me, but it isn't me." "Exactly." She nodded. "And if someone set that up under a joint access authority, it would show as your name in summary, not in ownership." "Can you tell if a power of attorney was filed?" She shook her head, scanning further. "No POA on record for you. If there were, it would be notarized here." The sound of the stamp hit paper twice, once for the alias mismatch, once for the absence of a POA. I folded each sheet carefully, like tiny walls being built. "Could I get a signed note summarizing those findings?" I asked. "Already printed," she said, sliding them across. "You'll want to request full screenshots from whoever sent you the cropped one. Look for recipient name and routing." "Thank you, Linda," I said, "for treating the quiet ones seriously." Back in my car, I called Arliss. Her voice came small through the speaker. "Mom, did you go to the bank again?" "Yes. I'd just like the full screenshot and the one with all fields visible." "I'll ask Duran," she said quickly. That would be fine, I replied. I'll wait for the complete fields. I ended the call gently, before her sigh could reach me. By noon, I was at the parish office, where the tech volunteer, Nico Alvarez, a kind young man who fixed the live stream cameras, was scrolling through social media on his laptop. Nico, have you seen this post? I asked, showing him my phone. It was a glossy photo of a devoted family caring weekly for their elders, shared by the local business alliance. The couple in the photo looked suspiciously perfect. He right-clicked, ran a quick reverse image search, and frowned. Mrs. Ellison, this picture's stock, from a modeling agency site, uploaded last year. My stomach didn't twist. It settled. Can you print me proof? He nodded, saving metadata and timestamps into a PDF. Here's the link source, file origin, and upload history. It's not your daughter and her husband. I didn't think so, I said softly. But now I know. Also at home that evening, the golden hour painted my walls in calm light. I spread the papers on the coffee table, stamped statements, alias notes, parish screenshot. I labeled a new divider tab, names and narratives, and clipped everything behind it. Then I wrote a single line on a clean page. Tomorrow, ring video, confirm who actually visited. I closed the binder on their story and left a tab open for the truth the camera would tell. By late morning, the sun was already bright over Richardson when Mrs. Torres's son handed me a chipped mug that read, Best Mom in faded pink letters. Inside was a thumb drive with masking tape on it, Ellison Mother's Day. His mother stood by the door, purse in hand. You can copy whatever you need, she said kindly. Just let us know if the police ever ask about privacy. I'm not calling the police, I assured her. Just calling things by their right names. At home. I plugged the drive into my old laptop. The first clip opened with my porch in frame. Sunday afternoon, 2:14 p.m. Arliss and Joran stepped up together, perfectly dressed, smiling for the bell camera. No envelope in their hands, only flowers. The same lilies now drooping in my kitchen vase. The timestamp matched the moment my wall clock chimed twice. They knocked, smiled for a second too long, then turned their heads, performing kindness for an unseen audience. My stomach didn't sink. It simply confirmed. I cued the rest of the clips, 8 visits total, stretching back months. The same choreography, arrival, brief greeting, no package, no transfer. Sometimes they held coffee cups, sometimes gift bags that stayed sealed. I noted everything in my brown notebook, date, time, items visible, duration. The pattern wrote itself, visits of image, not substance. Then Mrs. Torres appeared beside me with her phone. There's a voicemail tied to one of the deliveries, she said, playing it through the speaker. Joran's voice filled the room, smooth and dismissive. We're running late to my mother-in-law's. No need for the cash drop. She'll handle it next time. The words hit harder than any shout. I asked for a copy. She nodded. We exported the clip and voicemail, and I wrote the time and hash code on a sticky note. Would you sign this line? I asked. She did, in neat cursive. Source: Maya Torres, homeowner. Chain of custody complete by mid-afternoon. I was back at the parish office where Nico Alvarez waited near the tech corner. Let's secure the files, he said, plugging in his encrypted drive. He verified the metadata, made mirrored copies, and printed a thumbnail sheet of all frames showing the front steps. You've got solid timestamps, he told me. Nothing altered. All original creation data intact. I smiled faintly. That's what truth should look like, unaltered, time-stamped, back home. I opened my binder and slid the new documents under a yellow tab labeled Camera VM. I added one more note in careful handwriting. No envelope visible. Voicemail contradicts cash narrative. Then I closed the binder, feeling not triumph, but a deep, clean quiet. That evening, I walked to St. Mark's Fellowship Hall, where Father Michael and a few volunteers were setting up for Thursday's community dinner. I adjusted a tablecloth and placed small centerpieces, nothing lavish, just daisies and candles. On the side table, I laid 2 clipboards and a sealed manila envelope marked donations. I wasn't staging drama, I was creating structure. Before leaving, I composed a short text to Arliss and Joran, hosting a small gratitude dinner tomorrow at St. Mark's to thank those who help me each month. 6 p.m. I called 2 parish friends afterward, quiet women who listen more than they talk. "Would you come sit near the front table?" I asked. They agreed without questions. Back home. I placed the USB beside my binder and the church envelope. I rehearsed 3 sentences aloud, the only ones I would need tomorrow. Then I turned off the light and locked the door. For the first time all week, the air felt lighter. I would not raise my voice tomorrow, only raise the file and let the camera speak. Monday morning brought a gray stillness that felt almost neutral, perfect for what needed doing. I walked into the credit union with my binder tucked under my arm, the stamped no deposits sheet right on top. "I'd like to speak with compliance," I told the receptionist. "I need process, not opinions." A few minutes later, I sat across from Grant Lemaire, a man with tidy hair and a banker's precision. His cubicle smelled faintly of toner. I placed my binder on the desk. "Mrs. Ellison," he began politely, "you're looking to verify recipient data." "Yes, I'd like to know who created a recipient alias under my name, and when." He nodded, typing. "Let's look at the logs. Every action leaves a footprint." The monitor glowed with lines of data. Grant explained the codes, timestamps, device types, origin IPs. The numbers rolled down the screen like quiet confession. "Here," he said, pointing. "This alias was created from an IP in Frisco, not Richardson, and the device registered under another surname, Vale." My hands didn't shake. "Can I have that in a redacted copy?" He printed it, marked the origin line with yellow highlight, and clipped it to my binder. "This proves creation from outside your household," he said softly. He scrolled further, pausing again. "There's also a scanned authorization form on file, supposedly signed by you." He turned the screen. My name curved in blue ink, but not mine. The slant leaned left, and the pressure was uneven, pausing mid-stroke. My signature never hesitated. "That isn't me," I said quietly. He studied it. "You can tell by baseline drift. The loop tension's different." I nodded. "Print it, please." "Whirlies," the printer hummed, and he handed me the sheet. The smell of fresh ink felt like betrayal. From there, I drove to the library's small notary desk. Renee Holloway, gray-haired and steady-handed, greeted me with a smile. "What do we have?" "Just 2 signatures. One mine, one pretending to be..." She examined both under a small desk lamp. "Baseline here is consistent with your license," she said, tapping my driver's ID. "But this scanned one, see? The pen lifts between you and pressure drops mid-line. You don't write like that." "I needed another pair of eyes," I said. "Well," she replied, stamping her name under a note, "these are my eyes. Not expert, just experienced." I thanked her and tucked the signed comparison note into my folder. Back at the bank that afternoon, Grant had one more set of findings waiting. We ran merchant category codes on a linked card from the same address, he said. "See these descriptors?" I scanned the list. Spa treatments, boutique purchases, even a car down payment, each appearing days after the supposed $5,000 transfer dates. "So the transfers weren't to me," I murmured, but the spending matched the story. He nodded grimly. Corporate card, household tie-in, pattern equals siphon. Together we stamped each page, metadata trail, signature copy, MCC printouts, and sealed them inside an envelope labeled Signatures and Codes. I initialed every corner. When he handed the envelope back, Grant said, "It's not personals, but ink always wins." "Exactly," I replied. "That's why I keep paper." By dusk, I was home again at the kitchen table, spreading documents like puzzle pieces. The hum of my refrigerator was the only sound. I made a list of next steps in the margin of my notebook. Request uncropped proof. Ask for notarized statements from both. If refused, escalate to Elder Financial Protection Council. I texted one final message to Arliss and Joran. Please bring the uncropped transfer with recipient and last 4 digits by Friday. Then I slipped the forged authorization under a new tab marked Ink. I labeled the tab Ink because mouths could lie, but the pen already had spoken. The parish called it a clarification meeting. I called it a reckoning wrapped in courtesy. By Wednesday night, St. Mark's Fellowship Hall was quieter than usual, fewer chairs, fewer eyes. I arrived early, setting a single USB drive beside a sealed, notarized envelope. The daisies from last week had wilted, but their scent lingered, a faint sweetness under the fluorescent lights. Father Michael opened the evening with prayer. "We gather not to accuse," he said, "but to understand." I nodded, calm, binder in hand. When he gestured for me to speak, I walked forward. "Facts first," I said softly. "Always facts." I summarized with precision. The alias created from a foreign device, the ring clips of empty hands, the signature that wasn't mine. My tone was even not defensive. Father Michael kept his gaze steady, his role more judge than priest tonight. "This is not about anger," I said. "It's about alignment, what the records say and what the stories say." Arliss sat beside Joran, her hands clasped too tight. When she stood, her voice trembled but carried. "I already sent an email. Mom, I apologized. I explained everything. You must not have seen it." Nico, sitting near the projector, quietly asked, "Would you allow me to confirm that?" He connected to the hall's Wi-Fi, typed her address, and mirrored the results on the wall. There it was. Search bar empty. Drafts folder open. Metadata, draft created, never sent. The air stilled. Arliss's eyes darted toward Joran. Maybe I thought I pressed send. It's not the apology that hurts, dear," I said, my voice even. "It's that it was rehearsed, not felt." The silence thickened until Father Michael opened the envelope marked Notarized Statement. He unfolded the paper and read aloud. "Upon review of 2 signatures, discrepancies are observed in slant, pen pressure, and lift pattern. In my opinion, the signatures do not match. Signed, Renee Holloway, Public Notary." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. I added quietly, "She's not a handwriting expert. She's a witness. And sometimes that's enough." A murmur spread through the pews. One older man from the choir whispered, "Ink doesn't lie." Nico looked down. Hands folded. Joran straightened his jacket, adjusting the same cufflinks he wore to my house that Mother's Day. He leaned toward Arliss and muttered something sharp enough to make her flinch. I turned to them both. "Money can be returned. Trust can't. You wrote my name like it was a form to process. That isn't generosity, that's control." My voice didn't shake. It simply landed. Father Michael closed his folder and spoke softly. "Sometimes forgiveness must wait for truth to settle." He signed a short parish note acknowledging the presentation of evidence. folded it, and handed me a copy. When the gathering dismissed, I didn't look back to see who stayed. I walked toward the door, feeling the hush behind me. On the wall, the projector still cast its frozen frame, me, on Mother's Day, opening my front door to empty hands. For a heartbeat, I wanted to reach through that image, to fix it, to hug them even once if only they'd come honest. Back home, I hung the notarized statement on my corkboard beneath a small wooden word, Grace. Beneath it, I wrote 3 words in blue pen, Truth loves light. I left the light on that night, not for them to return, but so I'd remember what truth looks like. Laurel Keene's office sat on the 12th floor of a building that smelled faintly of lemon polish and seriousness. Her assistant offered tea. I declined. I placed my binder on the table, the camera and ink tabs showing, "I'm not here to vent," I said. "I'm here to verify." Laurel, mid-40s, calm eyes under sharp glasses, flipped through the documents without hurry. When she reached the Ring transcript, she nodded once, then again at the forged authorization. "You did your homework, Mrs. Ellison." "I had to," I replied. "No one else was taking attendance." She opened her statute book, pages marked with colored tabs. Texas Penal Code 32.53, financial exploitation of the elderly. Civil remedies include restitution, injunctions, fee recovery. "We'll take it, ma'am." The steadiness in her voice startled me more than comfort could. "You mean you'll represent me?" "Yes," she said. "Retainer waived until recovery. We'll start with a preservation demand, then move to forensics." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. We began mapping the next steps: bank subpoena draft, metadata review, communication freeze order. "No fire until facts," she said, sketching a quick triangle. Proof, paper, pressure. She copied my binder's structure. "We'll need a forensic accountant. I'll coordinate with Otto Park in Plano, one of the best for tracing family accounts." At Otto's office the next morning, I handed over MCC printouts, act descriptors, and a thumb drive with Ring thumbnails. His desk was chaos turned to pattern: 2 monitors, 5 calculators, and a half-eaten granola bar. "I like your tabs," he said with a smile. "Camera, ink, teeth. You think like an auditor." "Old habit from PTA budgets," I answered. He chuckled, then opened a spreadsheet template. For 2 hours, numbers replaced emotion. Auto map transactions, layering transfer logs against spending histories. When the final graph appeared, the pattern was undeniable. Spikes of withdrawal 24 to 72 hours after every supposed gift transfer. Each spike matched spa visits, luxury purchases, and the car payment Joanne once bragged about. Otto turned the screen toward me. "This isn't generosity, Mrs. Ellison. It's siphoning. Clean, deliberate, patterned." I didn't flinch. "Then we label it correctly." Back in Dallas, Laurel's paralegal created digital hashes for each file, videos, screenshots, emails, and notarized a custody log. We sealed duplicates in an evidence box marked A. "Everything numbered, time-stamped, cross-referenced," Laurel said. "You've built a better chain of custody than half our clients." "It's what I used to do for the church pantry," I replied. Different kind of hunger, same discipline. By mid-afternoon, we drafted the demand letter. Laurel dictated while I listened. "This correspondence constitutes a formal demand to cure, full repayment of misdirected transfers, provision of unedited financial records, cessation of unauthorized account use, and preservation of all devices and data relevant to this matter." She signed it, stamped it, and handed me a duplicate. "This one's for your binder," she said. "Teeth." The letter went out Friday morning by certified mail. By late afternoon, my phone began to buzz. Arliss, Mom, now please wait. It's a misunderstanding. Then we'll explain. Then nothing. Minutes later, I received system alerts, shared album items deleted, access logs updated. Laurel's assistant called it spoliation in real time. She sent Otto an urgent email. Mirror every metadata copy now. Within the hour, they filed a litigation hold letter. Otto captured deletion timestamps and preserved screenshots of the empty folders. I logged each ping in my brown notebook, time to the minute. When the house went quiet again, I brewed tea, set my binder open, and slid the new tab into place. Teeth. The steam rose between the lamp and the paperwork. I won't raise my voice, I whispered. I'll raise the evidence. I set the binder on the table and waited, not for apologies, but for the servers to finish telling the truth. I set the table like it was any other Monday. 3 plates, 1 binder, nothing more. The windows were open just enough to let in the cicada's rhythm, steady and slow, like a metronome for patience. The kettle hissed and clicked off. I smoothed the tablecloth, lined the plates evenly, and decided one rule. I would ask only questions, never accuse. At exactly 6, tires whispered on the driveway. Arliss and Joran appeared in the doorway, polished smiles, pressed clothes, voices rehearsed. Mom, we wanted to clear up the misunderstanding. Arliss began. Those payment routes can be confusing. Bank systems lag sometimes, Joran added, his tone managerial, almost patronizing. I simply nodded and gestured for them to sit. I've heard that, I said. Which date do you believe is correct? From my binder, I slid out a small cream-colored card, the 3 dates. The first column read 10th, their statement. The second 15th, bank transfer. And the third, 16th to 17th, spending. This is from your account summaries, I said gently. So which of these dates belongs to your story? Joran's confidence faltered for half a breath. The 10th, he said. It's always on the 10th. I turned the card once, slow enough for the air to still. Your bank confirms the 15th, I replied softly. And this row, your luxury purchases, show activity on the 16th and 17th. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. The room thickened with a silence that hummed between my teacups. I pressed one button on my phone and set it on the table. Laurel's voice filled the space, clear, even composed. Good evening, everyone, she said. As counsel for Mrs. Ellison, I'd like to restate the standing request, unedited proof of transfers, recipient verification, and preservation of all digital records. This is a conversation for clarity, not conflict. I poured tea for each of us. The sound was the only movement in the room. Then, the doorbell rang. I excused myself, opening it to Otto Park, holding a slim folder. Sorry to interrupt dinner, he said with a polite half-smile. But I thought you might want this tonight. He stepped in, laying a color-coded grid on the table. These 2 columns, he explained, show transfers under Maura Ellison, and here, the corresponding expenditures. His finger moved down the page. Each outflow occurred within 72 hours, all categorized under personal expenses, spa, retail, automotive. Arliss stared at the paper. Joran's jaw flexed, his cufflink glinting under the dining light. That vehicle line item, Otto continued, tapping a cell, was paid 48 hours after a transfer supposedly meant for Mrs. Ellison. He looked up, tone still neutral. That correlation meets the forensic threshold for linked misuse. My phone chimed again, this time a call patched through the speaker. Grant Lemaire's steady voice came on. This is Grant from the Credit Union Compliance Office. Mrs. Ellison asked me to confirm. There's no power of attorney on her profile, and the alias used for these transfers originated from a device outside her residence. I can send a formal memo by morning. Thank you. Mr. Lemaire, I said. Arliss's face had gone pale. Mom, please, this isn't what it looks like. I met her eyes with quiet steadiness. Then show me what it is. I folded my hands. Return what was sent. Bring the uncropped proof. Then we can talk about trust. Not before. I kept my tone as soft as the ticking clock above us, each word trimmed of anger, weighted with finality. They left without finishing their tea. The air they'd disturbed took a long time to settle. When the door closed, I filed the 3 dates card under the tab labeled Teeth. The house was quiet again, but not empty. The binder sat on the table like a heartbeat. I wrote one line in my notebook. Next, the public ledger. I closed the binder and circled the word ledger, because the next proof wouldn't be private. Morning light filtered through the courthouse windows like calm judgment. The building hummed softly, heels on tile, murmurs of clerks, a printer somewhere spitting out fate 1 page at a time. I held the binder against my chest, the tab ledger glinting under the fluorescent lights. Laurel walked beside me, calm and direct as ever. You've already won, Maura, she said quietly. Now we just let the paper say it. Inside the mediation room, Judge Morales greeted us with a nod. We're here for clarity, he said, not ceremony. The air smelled faintly of old files and disinfectant. Arliss sat beside Joran, both composed but colorless. Otto's laptop waited on the end of the table, cables neatly coiled like patient snakes. Laurel began, her voice measured, surgical. This case concerns financial misdirection via alias transfer, an unverified power of attorney, and inconsistent deposit records. Our goal is restitution through acknowledgement and compliance. No blame, no bitterness, only precision. When Otto connected his laptop, the lights dimmed slightly. On the wall, the digital ledger bloomed, blue lines for transfers, red for expenditures, gray for time gaps. These are synchronized, Judge Morales asked. Yes, Your Honor, Otto said. Each blue entry corresponds to a red outflow within 72 hours. The screen flickered through months, columns of numbers that told a story better than words ever could. Arliss pressed her hand to her temple. We meant to fix it, she murmured. The timeline stopped on a single spa transaction. The silence afterward was heavy enough to count. Joran's jaw clenched, his knuckles whitened above the table edge. Laurel cleared her throat. Your Honor, under Texas Family Code 45.015, Mrs. Ellison meets the definition of a direct victim of elder financial exploitation. We request acknowledgement for restitution in standing. The judge glanced at Grant Lemaire's affidavit and Otto's certified logs, then nodded slowly. Granted. Proceed with filing through the free legal clinic. The clinic representative stepped forward, signing the acceptance document with a quiet finality that carried more weight than any gavel. For the first time in weeks, my lungs remembered how to expand. Judge Morales closed his folder. I see too many people shouting for justice, he said softly. But you, Mrs. Ellison, you wrote your way here. Keep doing that. His gavel tapped once, a sound more like approval than closure. In the hallway, the air felt lighter. Arliss stared at the floor, silent. Joran scribbled his signature on the preliminary restitution terms, then left without a glance. Otto unplugged his cables. Laurel smiled faintly, placing a hand on my arm. Paper beats performance every time. That evening, I returned to St. T. Mark's. The church was quiet except for the candle's soft crackle. I placed the binder on the altar table beside the hymn book. Father Michael approached, voice gentle. "Truth doesn't always punish," he said. "Sometimes it repairs." I nodded, eyes tracing the small brass cross above the altar. "Then I hope it mends more than it cuts." When I left, the sky was a watercolor of dusk, muted but honest. I whispered, "Forgiveness will take time." But the truth already arrived on schedule. I walked out under the courthouse light, realizing justice doesn't need applause, it only needs paper. The church smelled of lemon oil and candle wax when I pinned the program to the corkboard. Community night, elder justice and new beginnings. I stood back and straightened the corners. My hands didn't shake this time. Tonight wasn't about winning, it was about finishing with grace. Laurel met me near the stage, clipboard in hand. "The escrow's cleared," she whispered. "Funds deposited, ledger balanced." Otto approached with a thin smile, carrying one single sheet, the public ledger summary. "Facts speak," he said. "Gently," I replied. The pews filled slowly. Familiar faces, quiet ones, a few parish volunteers, 2 members from the legal clinic, Father Michael lighting candles at the altar. Then Arliss arrived. No pearls, no makeup, her posture uncertain but willing. Joranne stood behind her, hands in pockets, eyes fixed on the floor. When Father Michael signaled, Laurel stepped forward. "We begin with acknowledgement," she said. Her voice carried steady through the small hall. "Funds diverted from Mrs. Maura Ellison have been returned in full via escrow today. Documentation confirmed by the Credit Union Compliance Office." Otto advanced a single slide, one line, date, amount, destination corrected to Maura Ellison Fund. There were no gasps, no murmurs, only a stillness that felt sacred. Grant's memo, embossed with the bank seal, passed quietly to the parish clerk for filing. Then it was my turn. I unfolded the letter I'd written the night after the courthouse. My handwriting looked calm, not angry. I wanted respect more than money. Trust pays in silence and collects in paper. I forgive so my heart can keep its house keys. You may knock again, but only if you come empty of excuses. I looked up. No sound. A woman in the back dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Arliss didn't move for a long time, then slowly lifted her gaze to mine. I nodded once. Permission to breathe, not forget. Father Michael stepped forward. "We will take a moment," he said. "No verdicts tonight, only awareness." A neighbor asked how to recognize signs of exploitation. Laurel listed them clearly: unauthorized access, pressure cloaked as help, digital isolation. Otto offered his hotline card. Knowledge passed hand to hand, not judgment. The banner dropped from the stage's edge. Grace Hands Community Fund. I signed the founding page beside Father Michael's name. The restitution money seeded it. An anonymous matching grant, Otto's network, and I suspected, doubled it instantly. Applause rose, small but genuine. I rang a tiny brass bell. "For the ones who thought they were invisible," I said. In the quiet corridor afterward, Arliss approached. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said. "Bring receipts, then bring time." Joranne's voice followed, subdued. "Should I step back from our accounts?" "Yes," I answered. "That's the kindest thing you can do." Laurel handed Arliss a folded checklist: financial counseling, quarterly transparency, no power of attorney access for 2 years. I took my daughter's hand for a brief moment. No speeches, no promises, only pressure and release. A beginning wrapped inside an ending. By the time I reached home, the night smelled of rain and grass. I placed the letter beside the ledger in my cedar box and left it unlocked. The porch light spilled across the steps, soft and steady. The church bell rang 9 times in the distance, like punctuation for the long story behind me. In my notebook, I wrote the final line: justice balanced, love permitted, boundaries intact. I left the porch light on, not as a beacon for the past, but as proof to myself that truth can live at home. Sometimes life doesn't give us second chances. It gives us paperwork, proof, and time to decide who we want to be next. I learned that truth doesn't need shouting. It only needs consistency. Respect is not built on what people say they send you, but on what they actually give and how they treat your trust. If you're watching this, remember, protect what you've built. Keep your boundaries kind but firm, and never confuse silence with weakness. I chose peace over anger, facts over fury, and I hope you do too. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Did this story touch your heart? Type 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real lessons, real emotions, please subscribe to the channel so we can keep sharing these moments together.